This is the E-commerce Brain Trust, a podcast about building momentum online for established consumer brands. Join our hosts and their expert guests for high-level conversations about e-commerce strategies, trends, and innovations. Access our brain trust and boost your brand's e-commerce potential.
Welcome to the E-commerce Brain Trust podcast. I'm Julie Spear, head of Retail Marketplace Services at Acadia. With the first month of 2025 in the books, it's time to roll out a brand new format that we're calling the Retail Roundup. For this episode, we have two folks that we go to frequently whenever we want to know what in the world is happening in our industry. Those two people are Ross, our Director of Retail Media at Acadia, and Armin, our Operations Team Lead. Armin himself, we call Armin.com. He is the living, breathing Amazon encyclopedia ever since Bezos sold his first book. Alongside me, I have my co-host, Jordan Ripley, and we're both ready to dive into what is shaping up to be a very busy string of announcements to kick off the year. So with that, welcome back to the show, Ross and Armin.
Thank you. Thank you.
Much. Great to have you here.
Well, let's dig right in. Let's start with an announcement that I think generated a whole lot of buzz over the last month, and that's the launch of Amazon Retail Ad Services, which debuted at CES a few weeks ago. Ross, can you give us a quick take on what this new product even is?
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually saw this before the announcement, before the Christmas holidays. I saw it in one of my accounts. And I went to create a campaign. I had the option to create a campaign on another retailer. And I was like, whoa, what is this? And it was actually for Sprouts Retail, which is like a smaller retailer. And my client actually does very little revenue there and had no interest in testing this, which missed opportunity for them. But essentially what it allows is for brands who are across the long tail of retailers to create ads within Amazon using Amazon's ad stack, Amazon's ad tech to have sponsored product results on those websites. So it's akin to what Criteo does. It's akin to what Citrus Ads does, but now Amazon is doing.
Because sponsored products for a while would run off of Amazon in select placements, and you would not have a lot of control over this. How is this different?
That's a great in the weeds question. So the difference here is that those off Amazon placements, you had no control over them. You had very, very few metrics to really understand their effectiveness. And we've seen over time that the percentage of off Amazon placements has been going up, but it's still in the 0.00% of spend, right? There's not a lot of inventory available. This is an evolution of that. And I think it's really was the intention was to have this kind of all along. For Amazon to actually be a platform where you can intentionally create ads for a specific retailer, not to be just with the equivalent of Google Display Network. We'll just serve your ads anywhere where there's a potential placement.
Yeah, when that rolled out, reminded me of the Meta Audience Network, right? You would toggle that on and suddenly
the one that everyone turns off is
a million impressions and zero conversions. Yeah, exactly. So no, this makes sense as a more sort of targeted, intentional off Amazon play. This is the question that I want to get to is, you have the demand side and the supply side. The supply side is contingent on Amazon inking deals with retailers that want to use their ad tech stack, which I think is still a big, they have iHerb, they have Oriental Trading Company, they have what you said, Sprouts, right? And it's those are all very long tail retailers. And so the question I have for you is, if we think of the hype score on this, there's a lot of buzz around this. I would like to get two hype scores, 1 to 10, right? 10 is most hype thing ever. This is going to change the way that we run ads. 1 is this is a meh and it's going to pass over. I'm curious, what is your own personal hype score relative to the industry right now?
I would say my own personal hype score relative to the industry is a 1.
Okay.
But I think there are contexts where this is more of a 10.
Okay.
And the context where it's more of a 10 is if these retailers really matter to you as a brand.
Okay.
The retail media ecosystem, as it stands right now, is still the Wild West. There are a lot of players. There's not a lot of consistency. And you have to have the wherewithal to set up all of these different platforms in order to merchandise these ad placements for customers. So it's not very well developed. But to me, it seems inevitable that there will be one ad platform to rule them all. Armin?
I'm picturing Gladiator style.
More of a Lord of the Rings reference, but I really appreciate you getting on.
But you will be entertained by that ad platform.
Yeah. And in that sense, this is just the opening salvo of Amazon getting into this world. I think as more and more retailers come on, as bigger retailers come on, look, the hottest take I have is that Target's retail media network is a hot mess, always has been. If I'm Target, if I'm the new CEO, which inevitably there will be, I'm just going to say, forget it. We're just going with Amazon's ad stack here because Criteo can't get it right, Citrus can't get it right, and we don't seem to be able to build it.
Now that's a hot take.
Yeah. The day that Target bolts on their chief competitor's ad stack, that right?
Here first.
Amazon and Facebook are already partnering for a number of things that we thought would never happen. Who's to say in the future?
I feel like we should wager $100 sponsored ads credit on if this actually comes.
Instacart and YouTube partner. These partnerships are only going to increase.
So your take that came out of that question is one thing, but also, Jordan, I would like a visual of the hype score spectrum. I think we need to have that. We need to measure a lot of things by meh to
Ross with like a Amazon ads tattoo across his forehead. Is the 10 on that scale? Yeah.
Well, Armin, let's dig into something that's a bit more ops focused. At the close of 2024, there was an announcement from Amazon that they would switch reimbursements for products on Seller Central that are lost or damaged. The reimbursement would be based on the product COGS rather than retail price. So this was a huge announcement, and it kind of blindsided a number of people. And it's a definite change from how Amazon has approached reimbursements over the years. Can you kind of walk us through how sellers actually go about reporting their COGS and complying with this change in policy? What does this look like?
Yeah, you don't have to do anything actually if you're okay with Amazon estimating your COGS and reimbursing you following their numbers. All of this data will be available on the new inventory defect and reimbursement dashboard. Amazon promised that in late January, there will be a new manager manufacturing cost page within this dash. And right now, it's still being rolled out. So the message on the dash says that they've begun the rollout, and this will be available to all sellers in the coming weeks. When this is available, it will allow a bulk upload. Given how Amazon rolls this out typically, I'm expecting a simple template where you can just specify the ASIN and the COGS, and then there will be an option to upload supporting evidence such as proof of cost of sourcing. And a very important note here is that Amazon expects you to only provide the cost to source a product from a manufacturer or produce them if you're the manufacturer. It excludes costs such as shipping, handling, custom duties, and things like that.
Do you have any sense? It seems like there's a pretty wide area for shenanigans here of how you would try to establish if you even want to establish your COGS with Amazon. I know there will be a lot of wariness around that with brands. And the second thing for those that do want to establish their COGS, there's no like BOL, there's no source of truth around this, right? I remember even for retail price, back when you would do reimbursements and you'd have to submit your purchase order from a supplier, right? There was, frankly, all sorts of shenanigans that happened around that. So I'm just wondering, do you see the system working? It seems fraught with issues.
Yeah, I see a lot of issues happening here. I mean, what is a proof of cost of sourcing, right? Is that a paper that somebody else, you tell them, like, put these numbers on, I need it for Amazon? As you would expect, sellers seem to be mainly worried about how this is going to affect their margins. That's the primary concern. Previously, Amazon would just reimburse them at almost the full price, the selling price, and this will now probably drop by around 40% or more. And of course, a lot of TBDs here as it's not fully rolled out, and we can't say for sure how Amazon estimated COGS will look like. Another stance people are taking is concerns around privacy and the conspiracy theories that this can inform Amazon's private label products. And I understand some companies will just not be open to sharing the COGS data. But at the same time, Amazon already has so much data and they can use that data to launch whatever they want, really. I think this is more of a profitability move. If we look at the post-pandemic period, we can see how Amazon has been shifting their focus from growth to profit on both seller and vendor side. And I think that this move is just another checkbox on a rather long list of action items to achieve that exactly. And in terms of how I expect this to play out, first of all, I'd advise everybody to wait and see how Amazon estimated their COGS, analyze products individually, and from there, determine which products you're happy with and where you need to provide COGS to get higher reimbursements. And then, as with anything that Amazon rolls out, there will be hiccups. I expect them pushing back on the documentation provided as well as COGS provided by the sellers, especially if there's like higher discrepancies between what Amazon has estimated versus what the seller has uploaded. Probably a lot of back and forth with Amazon support in these situations. And then as a consequence, there will probably be a need to go back and check reimbursement amounts and what COGS Amazon actually used. For sellers who use their own COGS, there will be a need to monitor this, at least at the beginning, to make sure that Amazon is applying the right amounts. Definitely expecting a couple of fun months after March 10.
Fun for you. Do we have an over-under on the likelihood that people will say that, yeah, Amazon got my COGS pretty spot on?
I had a question, Armin. How close does this bring the seller experience to the vendor experience? Because as a vendor, you never give up your real true COGS to Amazon. That's like very, very important secret information. But you do negotiate them on what the cost price of the product will be to them. Is like Amazon's shipped COGS measure is a negotiated number, how much you're willing to sell your product to Amazon. So how much does this bring the seller experience in line with the vendor experience?
Yeah, it does kind of align. And this has been happening for years, even decades, I would say, where seller and vendor kind of try to be equal in some ways. At the end of the day, Amazon has so much data, as I said. Even if, as a vendor, when you're submitting your COGS, Amazon says, no, this is too high. I know you're selling this cheaper to Walmart. They can see these things. It's just, as you said, negotiation levers, like what else can you offer? And then maybe your COGS go up. For example, SIP is a major kind of new thing that's going on with a lot of vendors and sellers as well, because as a seller, you get reimbursed if you're shipped in on-product packaging certified. And then as a vendor, you don't get that money back. But when you're negotiating with Amazon, you can say, okay, I'm certifying my product to be SIP, but then I expect this to be actually a cost increase on my product so I can actually get the margin. Because at the end of the day, it benefits Amazon as well if a product doesn't need packaging, it's smaller, optimized, and stuff like that.
Very timely tip for AVN season.
Oh, yeah.
I shouldn't use the word hype here. I don't know how many sellers are hyped about this change, so maybe this is like the sort of dread scale, 1 to 10.
Or is it a shenanigan scale?
A shenanigans, yeah. I'd say shenanigan scale is high here. I feel like Amazon rolls out anything and there's like an immediate existential panic from most sellers. 1 to 10 on how much this panic is warranted. Where do you place it?
I would say like a 9, good 9, just because this is really like real-time consequences. People's lives will depend on some of the margins they get from these things. And Amazon is kind of taking that money back.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So putting that in perspective, this is a 9. If you were to think back to a year ago and we were talking about all the seller fee changes on Amazon, what would you have rated that?
That one was 11.
All right.
That's helpful perspective. We started 2025 in a real interesting way. So to hear that it actually... in some ways is better than a year ago.
Armin operates on a log scale. He's not confined by a 1 to 10.
What happened this year was like, we're not introducing any fee hikes.
Yeah.
And then bam, we're taking 50% of your money through reimbursement and stuff. So,
honestly, that was kind of a gift anyway. We're going to give you the retail price of this product. Like, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, let's shift this back over to you, Ross, and thinking about more retail media updates from the past month. I don't know if these will inspire the level of hot take that the last topic did, but a couple updates from this month. One being the release of the 5-year look back for purchase signals and AMC, and then also the introduction of B2B specific bids, getting very in the weeds here. Any takes on the benefits of these announcements and how you see them playing out across your clients?
The specific bids for B2B is something that I would say sellers and vendors alike have wanted from the very beginning. I remember in my first days of Amazon, first clients that I had whose products were more B2B focused, this was something they would always ask about. Like, you've got this business dashboard. You're telling me what my business sales are. What can I do with that? With advertising? Nothing. Can't do anything. Well, now we finally have a way to bid up on business buyers. So I'm starting to see some data roll in on the effectiveness of this, of it like improving performance specifically for business products. I think that for a certain subset of brands who index highly on their business customers, this is going to be just table stakes for like good management on Amazon.
A tactical question, because you have these AMC derived audiences, right, that can then be implemented as bid modifiers for sponsored product campaigns. This seems sort of similar, right? I have a similar targeting subset that I can then manipulate the bids for.
Yeah.
It's just a sort of special one because it's for business. But this is purely for bids, right? I can't do targeting exclusions that says only bid it for these campaigns for business buyers.
It's a modifier. But that's very powerful. We're finding that to be very powerful with the AMC audiences as well, is to say, okay, I'm only willing to bid highly for a certain subset of customers. And this is the same feature. Are you still going to get some spend on non-business customers? Like potentially a little bit, but this could really skew your spend towards your ideal customer a lot higher.
Yeah, like a targeting proxy, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, very cool.
And I think from a simplicity perspective, I understand why they went that way. So instead of adding like a new type of targeting, they just tack something onto the modifier function that's easy for people to understand.
Mm-hmm. The other product release that Julie mentioned, the 5-year look back, I'm curious, first, what that is. And then if you're to weigh B2B or 5-year look back, which of these is sort of more groundbreaking or that we'll be talking about a year from now?
I want individual hype scores for each.
Yeah, hype scores for everything.
My feeling on B2B is like it's very niche. So for a lot of brands, it's a meh, but for B2B brands, it's a 10. It's like, oh, this is great. This is what I've always wanted. So now I can just make sure my marketing dollars are going towards the right people. The AMC one, I think, is relevant for all Amazon sellers. And I remember when AMC was first announced, this was something that I was hoping that they would give us I thought, oh, this is going to be possible. This is the first thing I want to interrogate is how can I break the 12-month look back lockdown that Amazon has on all my data, my new to brand customers, my customer data, all of it is locked in this 12-month window. So Amazon took a long time to finally break that. It was totally possible. They've had it within their grasp for this entire time. Now they finally unleashed it. And I'm sure in the future, there will be longer and longer look backs that will be made available, probably with a paywall eventually, because that seems to be the way these things are going. One of the most important announcements and developments in AMC recently is this like bigger data signal, especially for not just enterprise brands, but for mid-tier brands too, to understand who is their ideal customer set better, to understand what the long-term lifetime value of an Amazon customer is compared to other channels is a huge unlock that could tell you something. You can make your Amazon customer much more valuable than you previously thought it was.
Purchase signals, when we say that specific feature of AMC, how broad is that 5-year look back period? Like if I want to see somebody that did an add to cart or viewed a product page 5 years ago, is that part of purchase signals or I'm only getting order data?
You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have that answer.
We're still exploring.
I haven't dug into it enough to know. It's still pretty new. The team is just kind of digging into what's possible with this here. But my sense here is that it's purchase-based exclusive.
Right. But presumably if they're unlocking 5 years,
then they could unlock all of it. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, they're not throwing that data away. There's no way that they've been throwing this data away.
You can bring a correction to that assumption to the next Retail Roundup.
Right. Yeah. We'll have a corrections corner.
Yeah. The Retail Roundup in the last 5 minutes will be a corrections corner. We'll package everything.
I think we're opening a new nuclear power plant in Canada to like help support the data centers that's holding on.
Okay.
We might want to check that.
That deserves the highest score for sure.
All right, well, let's end this with a question back to you, Armin, and let's move from fees to the world of content and compliance. In January, Amazon announced that they'll be changing the title character count requirement. And then they even went a step further and said that they'd automatically revise titles with AI if you don't comply within a certain notice period of the title being changed. Which I love. That's like a good parental move. Like, this is my expectation. If you don't do it, this is what's going to happen.
AI will then do your homework for you.
Exactly. This also comes along with Amazon overhauling their image compliance platform, where they are promising a more streamlined approach to identifying image issues and images that violate Amazon policies, and then the steps needed to fix them. When you put all this together, what's your take on how Amazon is changing their approach to working with sellers on compliance related to content?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that as AI is maturing and its capabilities are expanding, it's becoming an increasingly active part of the Amazon platform as well. This means more automation, less manpower needed, and thus cost savings for Amazon, which they always love. When it comes to product titles, Amazon has been trying to enforce different requirements over several years, And some have been partially successful and some failed. Where they failed the most is catching all those like word soups in titles. And I think this is the main target in this update. On top of character limitation at 200 and the ban of special characters, they are putting a stop to word repetition. You're allowed to use the same word twice in a title, and that includes plurals as well. If your brand name is also a generic word, then you get a bonus repetition, so you can do 3 times. But no more titles like baby toy for baby boys and baby girls, gifts for babies and baby showers. Like this won't be happening anymore. And the biggest shock for sellers is, as you said, Julie, is the fact that non-compliant titles will be corrected and made compliant using AI. Previously, what Amazon would do is suppress your listing and you had to fix it yourself while the item could go inactive. And now Amazon is just not allowing the interruption. Sales must go on and their AI will take care of it. How well? We're yet to see. It's only been a week after the enforcement, and we haven't spotted any enforcements per se or changes happening. When it comes to images, I think it's the same story and same motivation here. AI is now equipped to do more, and Amazon wants to utilize that as much as possible. I do like and appreciate that this update is less aggressive. Sellers will actually gain more insights and guidance around what Amazon AI thinks should be done with specific images. Where this will go, whether this will go into aggressive mode, where AI makes the edits and publishes, that's TBD. But I honestly pray that it doesn't happen too quickly. We've all seen how wrong AI can be when it comes to image generation. Imagine AI putting images on your PDPs.
Yeah. I mean, this brings like to our inevitable last question, which is first, like you're working with brands all the time, Armin, and you see these changes go into effect. The image thing seems like it could be a handy tool, right, to get some clarity on what do I actually need to fix. The title thing, I mean, at its face seems like it also could be beneficial if implemented well, and that's a big if. Where do you fall on the hype or dread scale? From a 10 hype to a 10 dread, where do you place yourself?
There are two. There's a Jekyll and Hyde right now within me. Like one is saying hype is at 10 because I really want to see those words soups gone from Amazon.
Sure.
But then the dread is also at 10 because what will AI do with some of the listings that it doesn't understand well? I can only imagine like the soups it will make if they misunderstand the product.
They'll be shorter soups.
Yeah, sort of blue glaze.
A little less of a stew, closer to a brothy soup.
I'm picturing, if I like to sum this up with emoji, it's the one that's like sort of laughing and crying on one side of his face and then sobbing profusely on the other.
It's a cold, sweat, smile, cry. I think it's cold.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, that's one to tease out in the months to come.
Well, this was fun. I really was excited about the Retail Roundup, and you guys didn't disappoint. So thank you both for really bringing it and bringing some hot takes and some insights and measuring on a scale of meh to hype and shenanigans. It was all here. So
my hype for this episode was a 10, even though the shenanigans were
I'm giving it a 10. Maybe an 11. I'm scared what Ross is going to give it. I feel like Armin's going to ride the middle at a 5.
I give it a 10, and I'm going to be using potential for shenanigans or PFS again.
Excellent. Thanks, Armin. Thanks, Ross.
Well, good. Well, I hope it's a 10 for our listeners as well. And I appreciate you guys coming on and discussing what's happened the past month. And look forward to having you back. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.